Now, of course, every millennial isn't making the choice to not have kids, but there are a significant portion of millennials that are making the choice to not have children. And just so we can all be on the same page about what defines a millennial, according to this website, a millennial is an individual who is born between 1981 and 1996. And for anyone that's not very good at math like me, that would basically be someone between the ages of approximately 24 to 39. Oh, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm Hannah, the wife without kids. This channel is all about offering a supportive and non-judgmental community for those who have made the choice to not have children. So here we go. In no particular order, here's some reasons why millennials are deciding they don't want to be parents. Student debt. I know all about student debt. I had a lot of it. It wasn't the reason I decided not to have kids. But yeah, when you graduate with a small mortgage, you probably would like to defer having kids for obvious reasons. And statistics show that 70% of those graduating with an undergraduate degree are going to have some kind of federal or private student loan debt. According to the most recent studies, the class of 2019 is going to be $29,000 in debt once they graduate from either a private or a public university with a 4-year degree. That's a lot of money. We all know that the cost of university has increased significantly since the 1980s. And if you've gone to graduate school, you have even more student loans, significantly more student loans. Check out this graph. This is ridiculous. That is such a massive increase in education. I attended graduate school for 3 years and I have an obscene amount of student loan debt. I mean, it was like 6 figures of student loan debt. I had such a massive student loan that I moved back in with my parents. I moved back in with my parents way before it was trendy and everyone was doing it. Moving back in with my parents allowed me to make huge student loan payments so that I could just get rid of my debt as soon as possible. So for some people, if you graduate and you have $30,000 in student loan debt, they might not feel like it's a responsible decision to now have a baby because, as we all know, babies are not cheap. I made a video about the cost of raising a baby. I go into a little more detail and you can find that right up here. And sometimes the unthinkable happens. You pour your heart and your soul and a few tears and a whole lot of money into getting your degree and you graduate and then you can't find a job in that particular field. This can specifically depend on the type of degree you got and the demand for that specific job. Job demands for certain careers can fluctuate and that can depend on economy. It can depend on the state or province or country that you live in. One thing that never made any sense to me is when you graduate, you obviously have very little work experience because you have been in school. And other than the work experience that was required to complete your degree, you probably won't have any work experience.
So when jobs require work experience, but you can't get any work experience because no one will hire you because you don't have work experience because you just graduated, it's sort of this very strange place to be.
And then after all of that work and all of that focusing, getting your career and landing your dream job, some people literally want to just focus on their career. They want to focus on developing skills where they can grow and advance in their job, rather than becoming a parent. And I think it's important to know that about yourself. And if you're someone that loves your job and you love what you do and you really realize that your kid wouldn't be a priority in your life, it probably makes a lot more sense just not to have a child than to put your child on the back burner while you pursue your career. That's not where their mind is, that's not where their interest is, so it's actually a responsible choice to not have any children and focus on something that you feel is more of a priority for you. And I think it takes some self-reflection to look at yourself and say, you know what, I'm really a career-minded person. I want to focus on my career. That's what's my priority right now in life. And so that's what I'm going to pursue. Let's talk about a big one, healthcare costs. Let's just focus on the US for a moment. Not everyone has insurance. Not everyone has good insurance. Insurance coverage can vary widely from state to state or from country to country. So obviously I had to do a fair bit of research because I'm Canadian and Canadian healthcare is very different than the US healthcare. So I just researched what does it cost for someone to have a baby? And I came up with numbers that were on like extremes of the spectrum, or what I would consider an extreme of a spectrum. So let me just throw out the numbers out there. These may not be completely accurate for what your family, someone in your family paid to have a baby, or maybe what you've paid to have a baby. And if you feel comfortable telling me what you paid or what you know someone paid to have a baby, leave it down in the comments below because obviously this is just research and the numbers are like all over the place. So here's what I found. If you had average insurance coverage, you had a good pregnancy, you didn't need any extra care, there were no complications, it will cost $4,500 on average across the US to have a baby. Now, if you had complications during your pregnancy, if you had complications with delivery, if you needed a lot of aftercare, it could be upwards of $30,000 to have a baby. One baby. $30,000 to have a baby. I literally, my heart was having palpitations when I read that. Who can afford to have kids at 30 grand? $4,500 and then $30,000, that's a lot of in between. So $4,500 doesn't sound that bad. I mean, it does still sound like a lot of money to me, but then you say $30,000 to have a baby, and that just seems completely outrageous. When I was researching this and reading about the horror stories that some people had and the massive bills that they would get after they've had babies, I can understand why somebody would make the choice to not have a baby based on finances. Reading this, I would totally understand. This frightens me. I live in Canada. I don't have to pay money to have a baby. And here's the thing, you have no guarantees. You don't know if your pregnancy is going to be one of the simpler and easier ones and you're only going to have to pay $5,000, or if it's going to be super complicated and then you're going to be in massive debt and have massive medical bills because of your pregnancy and the complications that might come with it. I also came across this story of this lady who was American and she had twins. They were preemies. She needed all sorts of care during the pregnancy. They came early. She needed aftercare. Anyhow, when she finally got her bill was almost $900,000. $900,000. That is obscene. Now, she did end up having insurance, which did cover a great portion of it, but she was still left, I believe, with $50,000 or $60,000 to pay. That's a lot of money. Like, some people only make $50,000 a year. So how long would it take you to pay back your medical bills? That is terrifying to me. And I don't even have to pay the bill. The majority of my viewers are Americans, so I think this is really normal for you guys. You guys just realize, okay, we just have to pay this money and that's just what it is. Sometimes I listen to Dave Ramsey's talk show when people call in about their like financial woes. And I was always curious why people were like, oh yeah, I have like $50,000 or $60,000 or $100,000 in medical debt. And I'm thinking, what are these people doing to get so much medical debt?
How can I help?
A couple weeks ago, my wife went in for emergency C-section, and we had our beautiful baby girl at 28 weeks gestation. And she's in the NICU, and that has been ramping up our medical bills pretty quick. Already approaching the $150,000 mark down, and now we're just kind of feeling a little hopeless. And
now?
Light bulb moment. Yeah, I get it now. I feel really sorry for people who have debts like this. So yeah, if you don't want to go into medical debt, I can see that you might be like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to chance it to have a baby. Many people do go into debt, or they save up before they have their baby, I'm sure, and it's worth it. I'm not saying kids aren't worth it because of the debt, but I could see that this would frighten people or make them think twice before maybe deciding to have kids if they knew that there was going to be a huge risk of some major medical debt that maybe they didn't feel that they would be able to pay. And again, I don't know how this all works. I'm assuming people get to go on payment plans and all that, but I don't really know how you would pay down all that debt. I didn't get that far into my research. That was a bit of a rabbit hole, but anyhow. That's my thought on that. So I do have to insert this one quick thing about Canadian healthcare. Now, people say, oh, Canadian healthcare is free. It's technically not free because nothing comes for free. Now, while Canadians don't directly pay for medical services, like if you have a baby or you go visit the emergency room, we do pay a substantial amount of money for healthcare through federal and provincial taxes. The financing of Canadian healthcare is provided through taxation from both personal and corporate taxes. I feel like that sounded like a commercial for like Canadian healthcare.
The Public Health Agency of Canada proudly presents coughing, sneezing, and you. Every time a person coughs or sneezes, millions of disease-causing germs are launched into the air.
And when looking at the numbers, Canadians pay significantly more taxes than Americans do. And then another factor that plays into it as well would be maternity leave. And I'm sure this varies from employer to employer. And one issue that I come across over and over again that is huge to some people is the issue of adoption. Some people just feel that they shouldn't be having their own biological kids when there are so many kids up for adoption. Now, while millennials may not specifically want to be parents and do not want to adopt, some of them feel very strongly that it is not right to bring more children into the world when there are already so many children that do not have homes and people to love them. Some people feel that it is their mission to support adoption financially of their own means. They see that it is their role to not add more children into the world in a place where there are already so many. And then, of course, there are always the people that say, it's not your business if I don't have any kids. I don't have to explain myself, and that's the end of that. That's not the stance that I take. I'm pretty open about not having kids. I'm open to being criticized. Well, when you're on YouTube, you get criticized regardless of whether or not you're open to it. But some people just say, you know what? It's nobody's business why I don't have kids. I don't have to explain myself, and I suppose that's their right to say that.
Why don't you mind your own business?
I don't mind people asking me questions about why I don't have kids, which is one of the reasons I started this channel in the first place. And of course that elicits some pretty strong reactions and opinions from other people. And if you want to see some of the feedback I get from my choice to not have kids, you can check out the playlist that appears on your screen right now. And if you're new to my channel, go ahead and try this playlist first.